For those of you unfamiliar with me, my name is Ben Brown. I'm the owner of Satchmo's Bar and Grill over in Chesterfield, which, by the way, I hear is Sam Page's favorite restaurant. If that guy had left me a Yelp review, I'd be in trouble. Look around right now. Just look at this crowd we have right here, midday on a Friday. To me, I see this as a reason to have real hope. And it's not limited to just here today. Look at what's happening around the country. All around, you're seeing people showing up in force to school board meetings, city council meetings, county council meetings, you name it. And it seems that finally, the pendulum is starting to swing in the other direction. It hasn't come about as quickly as a lot of us would like, and it's been frustrating at times. And I think that's in part because for 18 months we had been told that clinging to our God-given freedom was selfish. That it is actually in the interest of public health for us to just hand over our personal liberties. I think what's changed is that at some point every American has to ask themselves, at what point is the cost of compliance, does it outweigh the consequences of rebellion? The threshold is going to be a little bit different for everybody, and I think that for everybody that's out here today, we've probably already reached that point. For me, I'll never forget the moment that I reached that threshold and something changed inside me forever. And granted, at this point, for close to a year, I'd already been pushing back against mask mandates and trying to push for some regulation reform to help the restaurant industry that was hurt pretty bad by some of these mandates. But I'm talking about that no turning back, all-in type moment. And for me, it occurred last November when the county executive, Sam Page, came out and said that he was going to close down all restaurants within the county. This despite the fact that for several weeks they'd been coming out saying that the majority of new hospitalizations were coming from outside of the county, whose restaurants remained open. They were saying that the main driver of new spread was actually from small gatherings and homes, not businesses. The leader of his own pandemic task force actually said 2 weeks prior that shutting down restaurants would do nothing to slow the spread because it was already too widespread in the community. But we know how Page likes to lie. We know how he likes to gaslight. So he shut down restaurants nonetheless. I heard about this. I was on a trip to a plane flight to a conference. And I got off. I landed on a layover in Salt Lake City. And I turned my internet back on. And my phone just started going crazy. I had all these people reaching out. Did you hear about the announcement? They're going to enact this new restaurant closure, and I couldn't believe it. I knew that unlike some of the other activist projects I'd taken on throughout the pandemic, this is something that I was going to have to build a coalition for. This was too big for any one person to take on their own. So I spent time the next few days while everyone else out exploring at this conference, and I locked myself in my hotel room. I started building these Facebook groups to use as kind of like a messaging hub, a communication hub, for outreach to other restaurants. You might be familiar with it, St. Louis Restaurants United. And I built a coalition of several other restaurant owners, started all these group messages and calls, and tried to figure out what our path of success was to fight this. I reached out to media, started doing interviews about how I was going to be defiant, and I was going to refuse to shut down my restaurant. Then the first day the order took effect came around. It was a Monday morning, and I was sitting at my kitchen table working on a few things on my computer, and I got a text from Emma Hogue from KMOV News, who did an interview with me a couple days prior. She said that, she asked if we followed through if our restaurant's open. We said, of course, that's what we said we were going to do. She then asked if she could meet me in my dining room and do an interview with me, saying that I was defying the mandate and explaining the reasons why. So I'm thinking, oh boy, I thought I was getting myself in it before, but this, it's one thing to talk about defying it. It's another to go on television and say, here I am, I refuse to comply, and these are the reasons why you shouldn't either. Then I looked over at my 5-year-old sitting on the couch. He was watching TV, and I started thinking, COVID-19, this is a historic time that we're living through, and it's going to be talked about for potentially generations to come. When my children ask me what my role was when this happened, what am I going to be able to say? Am I going to have to say that I took the easy route, I did what everyone else was doing? Or am I going to be able to say that I took the hard path? I stood up for what I believed was right, and I decided to fight. Right then and there, I made a decision. I flipped that switch in my head and I never looked back. And that's really what this is all about, at least to me. It's about the future of our children and our grandchildren. What kind of country, what kind of world do we want them to grow up in? It was Ronald Reagan that said, "Freedom is always only one generation away from extinction. And if we want to pass this on to our children, we have to stand and fight for it." Never before have those words rang as true as they do today, particularly with the kind of blatant overreach we're seeing at the federal government with the Biden administration and these ridiculous vaccine mandates. For 18 months, we have been pushed and pushed and pushed again. It's time we start pushing back. One thing that's become clear over the last year and a half is that the state legislature is the last line of defense against overreaching, unconstitutional mandates by the federal government. It's why we need Governor Parson to call a special session, and that's why I made the decision to run for state senate in 2022. Please remember that America is the land of the free because of the brave. Be bold, be brave, and never be afraid to stand up for what you believe is right. Thank you, everybody.